Good to have you with us on this Monday edition. Ed Schultz News and Commentary at WeGotEd.com, RawStory.com, and RingOfFireRadio.com. You get 2 for 1 today. You get 2 Eds. You get Edward Harrison, who is the host of Boom Bus on RT America, a great colleague, very informative, very educated in the financial world, and of course was with our team as we went to London over the weekend to cover the Brexit vote, which obviously has gotten now a lot of national attention. But before the trip, there just wasn't a whole lot of news coverage about the Brexit vote or what it meant, what the possible ramifications were before the vote took place. Now all hell is breaking loose globally on the markets everywhere, and people are asking, how did this happen? Well, Americans, I don't think, seriously pay enough attention to what's going on in the world. And this was one of these undercovered stories that for years the Brits have been thinking about getting out of the European Union. And the question has been all along, just what kind of an effect is this going to have on the markets? Well, now we're seeing it. Is it short term? Is it long term? Let's talk about the vote, which I find to be the most important thing, most interesting thing about this vote. We oftentimes in America hear about how people vote against their own best interests. This was part of the equation in England. There's no doubt that the working folk of America who are joined up with unions went against their rank and file and voted to get out of the European Union because of depressed wages. That's one of the facets. I also think that immigration is no short-sighted issue as well. I think demographically, the older Brits voted to get out because when they were around, when they voted to get into the European Union, it has evolved to something that they don't even recognize today. Ed Harrison, good to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Your thoughts on what you think is important about what unfolded?
You know, I think a lot of what you had to say is very true. Here's what I would say is that if you go back to 2004, before 2004, you had 15 countries in the EU. When the UK came in, there were 6. 3 were added with the UK, Ireland, and Denmark. 15, you had a long time for Portugal, for Spain, for Greece to actually catch up to the other countries, and they were a much smaller proportion of the 15 in the time before you had the accession of the 10 countries that came into the EU in 2004. But when those 10 countries came in, only 3 countries actually allowed them to have labor mobility complete and total to their country. We're talking Ireland, we're talking Sweden, and we're talking the UK. And the reality is that there's been a massive migration, over 130,000 people per year to the UK from 8 of those countries. These are the Eastern Bloc countries, what they call the A8. And that's been destabilizing from many perspectives, in the sense that it gives an out to people who believe that their wages are being depressed. They can point the finger at specific individuals, and in this particular referendum, I think you're exactly right that it did actually have a very important aspect to why people voted out.
The folks that wanted to stay in the European Union, what they call the Remain portion, there's the Remain and the Leave group. Obviously, the Leave group won, but the Remainers were saying stay in because of trade agreements. That was one of the things, and they also wanted to stay in because they felt like it was going to be very hard moving forward to reset the economy, and it would be better to make reforms inside the union. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thinking is that the most difficult thing about voting out is that it opens up a whole can of worms. I was telling Amira, who's the co-host with me on Boom Bus, that when you look at any sort of political or economic event as sort of a decision tree, where you get to each node in the decision tree, at some of the points, and they're like 1,000 different ways that you could go. Some other points, there's only one way, 1 or 2 ways. This is one of the nodes where there are 1,000 different ways that things can go. And so people avoid making decisions that lead you in those directions because you can go for safe and secure things. Now we're at a point where we have no idea what's going to happen with Scotland, what's going to happen with the trade agreements. We have no idea what the knock-on effects are in other countries like France, the Netherlands, Spain. I mean, there are a lot of different possibilities that this opens up. And so as a result, what we're seeing is a lot of uncertainty.
We were on a number of shows over there in the UK, and the question kept coming up, how is the United States going to respond? How is the relationship between Great Britain and the United States? Is that going to be severed or strained in any way? Today, Secretary of State John Kerry answered that question.
I'm here in this great capital city this evening in the aftermath of last week's vote to underscore the unbreakable bond that exists between the United States and the United Kingdom. The special relationship that we often refer to is perhaps even more important in these days of questioning on behalf of many people. But I want to make it clear that we, the United States, believe that it remains as strong and as crucial as ever.
Now, that's very interesting that John Kerry is saying that. That almost sounds like the most stabilizing thing the British people have heard since this vote when it comes to possibly affecting the markets. What do you think?
I think that the most stabilizing thing is, for us to see very quickly that people are saying that we're not going to rush into this whole process in a way that creates contagion into other countries. And I think it's important not only from a political perspective, I think it's also important from a economic perspective that you have that sort of backing from central banks and people like that. Let me tell you, let me give you an example. A survey came out today. It's called the PMI, Purchasing Managers Index. And basically what it said is the underlying growth rate of the United States is only 1% right now. So what that is what's called stall speed. It means that any bad thing that happens in the global economy could tip the United States into recession.
Could this do it?
This could be the thing that does it. I mean, this could be the one thing, and then you have a domino effect in terms of the feed on as a result of other factors that come into play. And in particular, one of the things that is most concerning is the dollar, the U.S. dollar being so high. So to the degree that the Federal Reserve can make it so that people understand, look, we don't want a strong dollar at this particular juncture that's crushing the emerging markets, that's crushing people who have U.S. dollar debts. What we're going to try to do is provide liquidity and make sure that the 1% that we have doesn't turn into negative 1%. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the kinds of things that you're looking for.
Is Scotland next?
I think that Scotland is a big problem because, we're talking about emotions here. We're not talking about people. You talked about the fact that people could be voting against their own interests. Well, the reality is that when your wages have been stagnant for an incredibly long time, yeah, and when you're seeing other people take your jobs, or what you think is happening is they're taking your jobs, mm-hmm, then, you vote emotionally. And the Scots are going to vote emotionally because what they think is you're taking us out of the EU. It's not us who's doing it, it's you, the English.
So where does the U.S. market go from here? Is this a short-term blip, or are we in the beginning of a possible downslide and maybe a valley that could last maybe a quarter? That's the really hard thing.
That's the really hard thing, yeah, right? I mean, what I would say is that the base case has to be that this is a blip, that within the next few days that, mm-hmm, we're going to see this sort out. I had originally said Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's when things will start to stabilize, and you'll start to see, on currency markets, on U.S. bond markets, on global bond markets, on stock markets, you would see the stabilization. If we go beyond that period of time, we certainly have the central banks to add liquidity, but then you're looking into a position where bad things can happen.
Ed, your thoughts on this? We may differ here, I don't know, but the social equation in this vote, there were some older traditional Brits that definitely went for the Brexit vote to leave because they feel like, so to speak, their manner is being lost, mm-hmm, that immigration is having too much an effect. And of course, many people think that split demographically the vote. I heard that a few times on the street talking to people. Your thoughts?
Well, interestingly enough, I think that there's a lot of truth to that, and here's how I would say it is that I certainly noticed that there was a demographic shift within the UK when I was there, and if you're a younger person, you look at that as a vibrant and thriving society. Mm-hmm. You look at the EU as a place where you can go. You can do the exact same thing that people are doing when they're coming to your country. You can go to Germany. You can go to Italy. You can go to Spain. There are tons of Brits who work in these places when they're young. So the EU is an opportunity for them. So they look at that as a positive. Older people who have settled and they've become entrenched in where they are, where their children are going to school, etc., they look at that as a threat more so. And I think that that's why you're seeing those demographic differences.
Edward Harrison from Boom Bust on RT America. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
Good
Great to have you with us. You bet. Ed Schultz, News and Commentary. We got more right after this.
Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today.
It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
All right, the politics of the day. There is an absolute smear campaign that has broken out between Donald Trump and Elizabeth Warren, and I really don't know who started it. But it's almost beneath Senator Warren. The Democrats and liberals in this country, they know who Donald Trump is, and they're never going to vote for him. But for some reason, I don't know if Elizabeth Warren is trying to outdo everybody else so she could be a presidential candidate, but it was on full display today in Cincinnati, Ohio. It almost was like an audition. It was almost as if she was begging Hillary Clinton for the ask, and in the process just continued to insult Donald Trump. I don't know if this is going to play or not. I mean, I think most people have already made up their mind what they think of the two candidates and where this is all going. I think on the liberal side, people are just looking to see how much of an influence Bernie Sanders is going to have on the platform. Now, as far as the liberal left is concerned, and the progressive movement, so to speak, it's pretty clear to me that the Clinton campaign is trying to prop up Elizabeth Warren to replace Bernie Sanders, because I think they're upset with Sanders, that this has gone on this long, that there's actually the potential of a platform fight at the convention, depending on what happens with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And so Elizabeth Warren is just, I don't know where all this enthusiasm was when Clinton and Sanders were going at it. I guess she was just home watching all the news, deciding on how she was going to play this thing. But her performance today in front of that crowd in Cincinnati, Ohio, was unlike any other surrogate we've seen. I mean, how could she be wrapped up in the closet so much and yet feel so strongly about Hillary Clinton? You almost have to question her motives. I like Elizabeth Warren's politics, but I'm not quite sure I'm sold on her. Here she is going after Trump.
Donald Trump says he'll make America great again. It's right there. No, it's stamped on the front of his goofy hat. You want to see Goofy? Look at him in that hat. But when Donald Trump says great, I ask, Great for who, exactly? Yeah. For millions of kids struggling to pay for an education, for millions of seniors barely surviving on Social Security, for families that don't fly to Scotland to play golf.
Now, I'm just going to say this. That is actually going to help Republicans motivate behind Donald Trump. It sounds like Elizabeth Warren is anti-profit. It sounds like she is anti-success, that everybody has to be the same, and anybody who has any success at all is going to get vilified or get thrown in the Trump camp. And I think that that's going to piss off a lot of Republicans to the point where they say, you know what? Trump is a hell of a lot better to listen to that socialist type stuff. And that's what I think people are going to say. Am I supporting Trump? No. Am I going to vote for Trump? No way. But I understand why people are in his camp, although he's imploding quite a bit. I'm just not sold on Warren. I just think this is, I think she's over the top, and I'll play the insults that she threw out today. I just think it's beneath her. I think it's unnecessary. In the meantime, Hillary Clinton continues to roll in national polls. She's got a 12-point lead in one poll, and she's got a 7-point lead in another poll. Here's Warren today talking about why she loves Hillary.
We're all here today because we're with her, and we're going to work our hearts out to make Hillary Clinton the next president of the United States.
You know, it's really interesting. That's an interesting comment, because that's exactly what Bernie Sanders has been saying for over a month. I think the Clinton campaign is trying to minimize Sanders and replace him with the face and the efforts of Elizabeth Warren. And I don't think they want a platform fight. I think they've gone as far as they're going to go. Nina Turner's going to join me tonight on TV to talk about that. So every interview that Bernie Sanders is in now, he's always asked about, is he going to endorse? Is he going to support? What's he going to do? What do you think Bernie's going to do? What do you think Bernie Sanders is going to vote? How many times does Bernie have to say he wants to defeat Donald Trump before people in the media start believing him? Here it is.
We won some very, very important victories in our effort to try to make it clear to the American people that the Democratic Party stands with the middle class, stands with working families, and is prepared to take on Wall Street and the big money interest. But we lost some very important fights. We're going to take that fight to Orlando, where the entire committee meets in 2 weeks. And if we don't succeed there, we're certainly going to take it to the floor of the Democratic Convention. And that is what this discussion in St. Louis did not include, as you indicated, the need to deal in a very strong way with the crisis of climate change. We need a tax on carbon. We need to end fracking. We need to be very, very clear that the minimum wage must be raised to $15 an hour. In my view, we need a Medicare for all single-payer program. So we have made some good gains, and I want to thank all of the people who participated in that process. We have more to do.
And more to do is a Trans-Pacific Partnership, where that was completely rejected by the committee, and it's going to be brought up again in Orlando. And the Sanders people are saying that this will be a fight on the convention floor. Basically, what the Sanders people on the committee want is for the Democratic Party to name Barack Obama, the President of the United States, as being on the wrong side of the issue. And the Clinton people are refusing to do that. And that's going to cause a problem with some. There is a poll out there showing that 86% of people who supported Bernie Sanders are going to support Hillary Clinton and vote for her. Well, you know, Trump has probably helped that a little bit too. But trade is going to be a big issue when they get to the convention floor if they don't satisfy the equation coming up in a few weeks in Orlando. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you Ed Schultz News and Commentary. We're back tomorrow.